Anybody who kills people, I have no empathy for them. I just don't want to waste my time praying for them. Now, other people can do that. Yeah. That's just who I am.
Right.
I want to think about victims. I want to think about their families. I want to think about all the people that were impacted by this, not the shooter. Maybe members of their family, if they didn't do anything wrong, it's hard for them too, but I'm not thinking about them. I'm thinking about the actual real victim. That's just me. Can I ask you both the question? How does it make you both feel after a terrible tragedy like a school shooting when you hear somebody on the far religious right just say thoughts and prayers? Literally when kids were praying when they were shot in Minneapolis. How does that make both of you feel?
That's exactly what I said to a coworker. Those children were in prayer.
Yeah.
When they were shot.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
Yep.
It breaks my heart. It's not prayer necessarily. It's basically common sense.
So what advice would you give to Michelle, Nicole? What would you tell her?
I mean, I think at this point when things are raw and real, I personally try not to engage with people who have different beliefs than me at this moment because everyone's triggered. And when everyone's triggered, that conversation is going to go nowhere good. So I just pull in, I gather my people that I'm close to who get what I feel and stay close. And then when things calm down, that is when I might engage with someone who's differently than me. But what is interesting, Brian, is when Charlie Kirk was shot, the outrage the right had about that was more than the outrage they have about children being killed on a regular basis in the school shoot. That's what killed me, is like the outrage you feel towards this man is the outrage you should feel about all the children that are senselessly dying in our country because of.
And it is interesting, right after a school shooting, you'll see some of these Republicans go into the House chambers with these AR-15 pins. But after Charlie Kirk's death, we didn't see that. I find that to be very, very
even how Charlie's even said that children's death is just the consequence of
the Second Amendment, right? So, which is disgusting.
Disgusting. And yet people are outraged about his death, but not about the children. So
Such a good point. Such a good point.
I am not from the U.S., but after seeing what happened to Charlie Kirk, and this isn't the first. Back home yesterday, my home country had another massacre, 4 people dead, and many others are injured. And how do we, because I can't wrap my mind around why we cannot have common sense gun control policies or something. It bothers me that this keeps on happening over and over and over. It's like a nonstop issue and nobody is doing.
Well, that's something I talk about a lot. I'll let Nicole answer to that. What are your thoughts on that, Nicole?
I'm like, welcome to America, where we prioritize guns over lives. Like, it's really the truth of it. And I think people are so obsessed with their freedom that even if it kills other people, because we're a country of freedom, we're not going to do anything about it. And it's not until it hits home, like Charlie Kirk being shot, that I think people on that side are like, oh, wait, maybe we need gun reform. But I don't have much hope for that because this country is obsessed with double standards. We want freedom, even if it costs you yours.
Nicole, in your family growing up, you said there were no guns in your household.
Correct. Thank God.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never had that conversation with my parents. We personally do not talk about politics because we have very opposite beliefs about politics, but they did not have guns and we did not grow up in environments that had guns. And it might have been, I mean, we were in the military, but we moved a lot. We lived in different countries. We lived in different states. And so I don't know if there was like an ease of packing that stuff up. I don't know. I'm so glad we did not have them, though.
That's what saddens me so much about the situation is not enough people are talking about gun control. And in fact, the last few seconds of Charlie Kirk's life, he was talking about violence was the last word out of his mouth when he was talking about gang violence. And then he was asked about transgenders in mass shootings. And he said too many of them. You know, it was just, to me, that's what Charlie Kirk stood for, attacking transgenders and attacking minorities. And in the last few seconds of his life, that's exactly what he was doing, which is unfortunate. But we should, you as a country, you would think we take a tragedy and try to turn it into a positive and try to make us all safer. Republicans just refuse to do that.
Yep. I was going to say, a lot of people are talking about gun reform. It's the left side talking about gun reform, and it's the right side that refuses to get on board with that.
I wanted just to mention, because you mentioned earlier that, we'll probably have the worst president, to handle this kind of event, for what just happened. And this morning, I don't know if you saw it, but one thing that I heard was that they knew they already had the suspect last night, but they didn't want to announce it because they wanted to allow President Trump to announce it.
Trump announced it before the FBI did, which is absurd, by the way. Trump was the guy that announced Charlie Kirk was dead, too. First of all, he's not the one that should be announcing that to the American people.
Exactly, which is ridiculous. But the worst thing about it, like you said, this guy's the worst president. The worst thing about it is that he went on there and he looked like a sorority girl because he went on there and he was like happy that he was breaking news. And he told the Fox and Friends, he goes, "Here, I got some breaking, you guys are breaking news." And he said it like smiling. And the Fox and Friends people were like, I don't know if that's appropriate right now for this moment.
It's not appropriate. Of course it's not appropriate, but he's an imbecile. He should have gone on the air today and he should have said, "I've got some breaking news. I only put on 7 layers of orange makeup today." That's what he should have done. What an imbecile. First of all, that's not for him to do. That's not the president's job to do that. I don't know. It's just sickening to me. If you have any questions for Nicole Mitchell too, by the way, questions, life questions, how to deal with stress, whether it be politics, what happened to Charlie Kirk, anything, Nicole is here to answer your questions.
Go ahead, say the number.
Go ahead.
And here's the thing, I very purposely did not watch the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I am the kind of person, when I see something, I never forget it, and it will replay. So this is just a reminder for those of you who are more sensitive like me. You're not a bad person for censoring what you watch. You're not a bad person for censoring what you consume. I've had people give me a hard time saying, you need to read more, watch more, you need to be up on it more, but I know my level and what is good for me and what will shut me down. And watching violent videos, and I know it's everywhere on social media, but as soon as I start seeing the beginning of a violent clip, I just get off.
And I watched it because I wanted to know if it was real.
Yeah.
And everything was happening at that moment. I haven't watched the video since. I've had some friends that were there that sent me some videos. And that's it. And I'll be honest with you, I wish I didn't see it. I've never seen anybody get executed like that. It's just awful. The only good thing that I've said about that is that he pretty much died instantly. I mean, he was out of it before he hit the ground. So if he felt any pain, it was only for a second or so. So that's the only good thing.
I called you a couple of weeks ago when the shooting happened in the church. And I think you got a little angry with me because I had an empathy for the shooter. And Nicole, I'm having issues with both sides. I feel empathy for those victims in these situations. And I also feel empathy for those who are committing these acts. So to me, the access to guns is a big problem, as you had mentioned with your own situation. And I had that situation with my son. The access to a gun, he would have offed himself a long time ago, but there are no guns. But
can I just say something real quick?
Words.
If I could just may, it's not that I was angry at you. I think that might be the wrong word. I was emotional because this was at a time where we learned that children had lost their lives. So we were all, all I will say is this. The first people I think about are the victims. The last people I think about are the people that committed these horrible crimes. I mean, that's just me. You have the right to pray or and that's fine. But Nicole, I don't know how you feel about that.
I actually think it beautifully demonstrates your humanity.
Where
you actually can, speaking of duality, that you can hold grief for obviously the victims, and you hold grief that someone would ever go to that level to harm other people. And I think we need more people like you who can admit, like, they're both victims. Obviously, the people who are killed are victims, but the person who did something is victim of something else. To cause that kind of harm to other people, there's obviously something going on with them. They need to face consequences. They need to be held accountable 100%. But we also don't need to make them into monsters, because they're not just monsters. They are also human with feelings and experiences that led them to that moment. So I think you have a really beautiful gift of holding a very intense duality of empathy for all humans. And I would say most people can't do that. And so I think that is a beautiful gift of yours. And if everyone doesn't get that, that's okay.
I appreciate your call, my dear. It's not anger. Anger is when you hear me call a MAGA supporter a right-wing buffoon or something like that.
But I will say, to add to that, there is a timing. I do think when there's a fresh incident, if you have empathy for both sides, I think that's actually really beautiful, but it's not the time to talk about that. I think it's the time to honor the victims who were shot and killed. And later down the road, we can talk about the nuance and the duality of having empathy for the killer. But I think talking about empathy for the killer in the moment of these lives being taken, I would not recommend that.
Nicole, maybe this is just who I am, but whether it's the shooter who murdered Charlie Kirk, whether it's the 9/11 terrorists, whether it's the terrorist in the Boston bombing, anybody who takes innocent people's lives, I hope they all burn in hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about a car accident where it's an accident. I'm talking about actual premeditated murder, which clearly this was. Anybody who kills people, I have no empathy for them. I just don't want to waste my time praying for them. Now, other people can do that. Yeah. That's just who I am.
Right.
I want to think about victims. I want to think about their families. I want to think about all the people that were impacted by this, not the shooter. Maybe members of their family, if they didn't do anything wrong, it's hard for them too, but I'm not thinking about them. I'm thinking about the actual real victim. That's just me.
Yeah. And I think even there's nuance. I think in the context that you're talking, that makes sense. But I think of like women who are domestically abused and raped by their husbands, and the women eventually kill their husband. That's different. That's what I'm saying. There's even nuance in murder, but with this kind of murder, what you're talking about, I understand it's more black and white.
Yeah.
And I think though that's a good point. Like, you're very wired in that way, and I think she's wired in that way. And I think there's actually pros and cons to both sides.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm very much that middle of the road person, but I obviously am a big voter for gun reform. It's long overdue in our country.
Well, listening to your show yesterday, Brian, was really interesting. I mean, I absolutely love your show. I started tuning in to it last year.
Thank you.
Before the election. And I turned several friends on to your style of debating. I won't even say debating. It's just burying these MAGA supporters.
Can you turn on, can you do me a favor, sir? Can you turn on some of your friends that look like Nicole to my show?
Well, my wife's sitting here right now, so no, I can't.
That's okay. I digress. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But by the way, that's my daughter's name is Nicole, so it's a very beautiful name. Absolutely, well, a beautiful name. Yeah, your discussion yesterday very insightful and interesting, because the crux of most of your show was we can't be the ones to, say tit for tat or say violence. I don't care, or I hate Charlie Kirk, or I'm glad he's dead. And I think very few of left-leaning progressive people think that. Totally. But on the other hand, you probably remember this caller that called in, and he was saying that Charlie Kirk was more like
Nazi.
Yes,
I didn't like that. I didn't like that language. Charlie Kirk was a terrible person, but
I understand the bobplay that you had with him.
Yeah, listen, people can say what they want, but I just don't agree with that verbiage. That's all.
Well, the overarching thing is that when you jump in bed with people, violence begets violence. I don't even know who said that. I don't think Dr. King originated that saying. But it's true. Violence begets violence, and our movement and progressivism is so much more evolved and thoughtful than, these people are. I mean, they're fascist, they're violent, and I believe this. If I can get any point across to you, but more than anything else, I believe. Can you tell me one single issue they're right about? Immigration. They're wrong because they won't.
I have a few. We might disagree on this. Some people might be. There are a few topics where I actually do agree with Republicans on, and this dives into religion and everything else. I am for capital punishment. With DNA that we have right now, if you can prove that somebody is guilty beyond the shadow of a doubt, like a school shooter, or, for example, the Parkland school shooter, that person should not be alive. Okay. That's my personal opinion. I don't want somebody eating 3 meals a day and taxpayer dollars paying for somebody to be able to sleep at night and be able to listen to the radio or watch TV. I believe I just want them off the planet. That's just my personal opinion. I understand the other side of it. Not an eye for an eye. I understand that. But I do agree with Republicans on capital punishment, and I do agree that we need to be tougher on criminals. But that doesn't mean that we should call people patriots and hostages that beat police officers on January 6th, and we can't be selective about it. We have to be, for example, gun control. If you sell an illegal gun to somebody, that should be a mandatory prison sentence. If you are caught with an illegal gun, that should be a mandatory prison sentence. How long? I'll let other people decide. But I just think, we need to be tougher on crime. Republicans are not consistent on that. But I would also say that in regards to what I said earlier, I am for capital punishment. Nicole, I don't know if you are for capital punishment, but that's
I'm a pacifist at heart. I'm a peace-loving person at the end of the day. And we live in a very racist, homophobic, biased country that targets and criminalizes people for being black, brown, immigrant, poor. And so they rig systems of justice to turn innocent people into criminals and kill them, imprison them for life all the time. So that's why I don't believe in capital punishment, because innocent people would be killed all the time.
Yeah. Thank you for the call, sir. I got to get to some other
Nick.
callers, but a really good phone call, and I appreciate you very much.